Madam President. Congratulations.
I'm fine, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm recovering.
It was a tough race, huh?
It was.
And you guys were many.
We were 5
Yeah.
in total,
Yeah. It's not easy, huh?
It's not easy, and the countrywide movement, it's just like national elections. So we're moving from town to town, office to office, using both social media and footwork. So it was a bit. And the debates also, you had to prepare for quite a bit of those debates. So
what's the secret? What's, like a lot of people, because you won by a landslide, then we must say. So what's the secret, Sat? Even when Jeff and I ran for president,
we need to know.
We have
we need to know.
The secret is God, to be honest. That's the secret.
I said we're listening to Baba Shalin quite a lot.
I say the secret is God because you have people who are even supporting you that don't even know are supporting you. And I think also use of the different media really helped. I would say the debates were quite good, because they helped those who you can't reach physically to watch you and listen to you, and also make their mind in terms of there was an equal platform. All the candidates got an opportunity to articulate themselves. We debated each other. And so for those who are pretty much undecided, were able to make that decision. And I find that the debates were particularly good for me because I had people who are even supporting different camps that after the debates made their decision to change their mind to support me.
You know what, Faith? They say, be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. Now you've gotten it. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for this. I think because of the grueling process that I had to go through, I had to be quite sure. You keep reciting and you keep talking to people and you keep listening to their aspirations. And it just reinforces to you why you more than ever you need to get to this position to make the difference. I'd say that with my predecessor, we've worked quite well, and at least I have quite a number from the previous council and new ones that are coming in. So it'll be a question of how quickly can the new council gel in so that we can start working and hit the ground running.
What's your team like? I know you have a deputy here.
So my deputy is Maura Kabata. I have 4 country representatives, 2 from the previous council, 2 are new. Then I have Nairobi representatives, all new. And general members as well, all new. So my aim will be to and a coast rep who is also new. So my aim will be to sit down together and, look at what their manifestos were, what do they want to achieve within this short 2-year period, and now align together so that we can agree on a work plan and setting targets and goals so that we can start together as a team.
You say short 2-year period.
Yeah.
You say,
the typical African president.
Yeah.
How many times?
You want 2 more? You want 4 more?
To start what you promised you're going to start in the first 2 years.
Actually, in the Law Society, only the president can't run again. So it's a 2-year period, that's it. And so it's quite important that you align with your team quite fast so that you can be able to lead your agenda that you've set for the next 2 years, because they can come back. But I only have these 2 years to leave a legacy.
But you were deputy before, Faith, right?
Yeah.
So you have experience.
I have that experience. That's the beauty. And that's why I want to quickly gel the team, because ordinarily the new ones are learning. They're coming to understand how things are working. So to avoid, having conflict at the onset is how do you inculcate them, help them understand, let them know what will be the expectations, what are the limitations, what they can do. Some, of course, have made various promises that are not achievable. And you have to make them understand. When you come and say that in the first 100 days, you'll ensure that maybe you have dispersed so much money to the branches. You haven't sat and looked at the budget of the year. You haven't looked at what are your expenditures of the National Council, what activities you must achieve within that given budget. So when you make those promises, then you come and realize that, my budget is actually much smaller than the promises I made, or you promised different covers that are not possible to achieve. So the important thing is to help them understand what is reasonably possible, what can you do, how can you ensure that you support them as well to live to the promises that they have made as they were campaigning, but most importantly, align them, because at the end of the day, the president is the vision bearer and the buck will stop with you at any given time. And so is to sit with my team and help them understand how can we move together as one, so that we can be able to achieve most of the promises that the membership are looking upon us, and also the expectations from the members of the public.
What kind of things are the members expecting, or that you feel like could be implemented soonest?
Well, the challenge that we're currently having that we must implement is how do we deal with the disaster system, how to make it more accountable and transparent. People want to know who are behind those percentages that are hanging. You have an issue at lands office. Until you physically come to the lands office, you're not able to determine why your transaction has been at 20 or 30% for so long. And that constant need of human intervention, while the hope was once we have a system, things will be more transparent and accountable. So we have very many members who their transactions are hanging, and you lose clients. Your clients, if your work is actually not moving, because an expectation of a client that you're moving a project, it's supposed to actually move. And we also have members of the public who are also running their transactions, and they expect that without having to facilitate, you can actually get your services and value for money, as well as the issue of corruption in our courts. We want to deal with setting up a task force that can go around the country to collect evidence of incompetence, corruption, and how we can start working and dealing with it through the Judicial Service Commission. Because as practitioners, the hope that you will go to court and get a fair day in court without having any external intervention. And the mood, particularly at the legal profession, is that there's a feel that a lot of judicial officers want to practice law as well. And so we have to ensure that we clean up that process, as well as just supporting the new areas of practice. How are we changing our training program? How are we supporting the young lawyers who are joining the legal profession? A lot have not had an opportunity to get work. So we're trying to not only have a working mentorship program that can, you feel like you're not alone. You get into the profession. What first steps? Who can hold your hand as you start out? How can we try and support the new ones that are joining the legal profession? As well as we have quite a huge project ahead. We're setting up the Wakili Tower and also having developments on our South Sea plot. So I would say, to say the least, we have quite a bit of work to do.
What is the Wakili Tower?
We want to set up our own building, our own towers at Gitanga Road. Yeah. Yeah.
And is that process in the works?
It's the process is on the works, yeah.
Can we supply sand at least, Jeff and Nick? And cement. Mwanaume ni kujaribu.
Where will you get sand from?
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Wow.
So Faith, you take over at the end of this month.
Yeah.
You've just mentioned your in-tray is very full.
Yeah.
And expectations are very high. Question a lot of people are asking, are you up to the task?
The last 2 years that we have worked closely with my predecessor, we've set a lot of these things that I want to see the next 2 years. We've set out the blueprint, we've started out the plan, things like the building. We started it in the last council. In reviewing our training programs, we started it as well. And of course, there are new things that we want to do in terms of improvement by virtue of that experience of working for the last 2 years. How we want to work differently, particularly with the legislative arm of government. We have MOUs with Senate and we want to have one with National Assembly, because we don't want to be just proactive in the kind of public interest litigation cases that we have, but we want to be active from the inception point. We want to look at what laws and policies are coming out and how LSK can plug in at that particular level. So instead of waiting until we're seeing a K clause coming out, because the style that this national government has adopted is having miscellaneous bills, so you can slip so many things under one miscellaneous amendment bill so that people cannot catch on. But if we are involved from the inception stage, then we can pick out the concerns and the issues and try to change them at that point before they get into law. So there are things that we have been thinking about and brainstorming in this particular council, and yes, it's a short 2-year period. So it's not only picking up from where we stopped, but just improving and trying to achieve at least a higher legacy in my tenure.
Let me ask you, does it fall under LSK to try and push for cases to take shorter periods, like like after elections, and then those kind of cases have like a shorter time frame to them to be petitions to be solved. Things like land cases can take 10, 20 years.
40 in some cases.
Yeah, in some cases. So will we have a framework so that we can say if we can deal with issues in a faster way? I mean, or how does it work?
For election petition matters, it's by statute. So that's why you see they run on a day-to-day basis, and the particular judges and magistrates are trained particularly to have and handle those matters, and all the other pending matters are set aside to give them time to proceed with those matters on a day-to-day basis. If you see, they run from Monday to Friday, morning till evening, and the aim is to meet that timeline that has been set in law. We have the small claims court that does the same, that has also limitation by time by virtue of statute. But apart from that, the argument and part of the meetings that we'll be having with the Chief Justice together with our branch leaders is how can we ensure that there's better service delivery. There are certain courts that we are not quite happy with. As much as they say it's because of backlog, we've seen particularly at the Court of Appeal, they've been hired, new judges have been hired at the Court of Appeal, but there's still no traction or movement in terms of the backlog that has pre-existingly been there. So many people now make the proverbial joke that once you file a stay at the Court of Appeal and you get it, then that matter, you've literally won the case, because by the time you get to hear the matter and it's determined, it takes quite a bit of time.
In fact, most people have forgotten all the details of the case.
Exactly. And so it's now that pressure that we want to put upon them, that every court, we have to give you timelines, and you have to abide by those timelines, because we cannot argue that we are having more judges being hired, but we're not seeing the impact and the traction. There are the legal weeks that are normally there that they purport to, try and clear the backlogs that are there, but at the end of the day, we still see the backlog is still pre-existing. We're seeing cases that are staying for too long, and the argument that we've been having with the Office of the Chief Justice is that most people are filing their matters in the small claims court because they actually move and you get a decision in a shorter time period. Why should you file in the normal courts when your matter will stay for years to end? And the other concern that we're having is, even when a matter is heard and determined, for you to get the final decision, it's taking quite years and years, when judges or magistrates keep issuing notices that decision will be issued on notice. So today they tell you this date, the next a different date, and then finally they're quiet. You have to keep trying to follow up at the courts to find out how far have they sat down to make a final decision. And the complaints by some of our members is that you'll need some sort of intervention at the end of the day to ensure that you get that decision out. And so, to bring more transparency and accountability, we want, as much as they have set the no adjournment policy, want them to also set policies on when decisions must be made, and the style on which it is communicated, so that you don't have a matter that is heard and determined, but it's 2-3 years pending. You've not gotten the decision. Justice delayed is justice denied.
You haven't even taken over office, and already the KPPDU held a demonstration the other day. They're calling for a nationwide strike. Their leader was slammed with a tear gas canister on his head. He was in hospital for a few days. And you commented, you said that this is reversing some of the successes that have happened. What are your thoughts?
My concern was even the video that he shared with us, the police officer who launched the canister. It was directly aimed at him. And our concern as the Law Society is that members should be allowed to carry out their peaceful demonstration. They gave notice, they gave the intention, the memorandum they wanted to present, and the demonstration was peaceful. There's no threat, so to speak. And the kind of inaction that we're seeing with the Inspector General after that incident occurred, you can't say that they don't know who the person who hit Devji was. But there's absolutely no action to have him arrested. There's no action to investigate the matter. They just blanketly decided that it's an accident. Let the courts decide whether it was an accident or not. It's not you to, you're sending the police out there, then you make the decision, and Devji is lying in the hospital. At the end of the day, members of the public expect that they can express themselves as provided in the Constitution, And why we're concerned about this is that LSK as well had a peaceful demonstration in Nakuru, and what we saw was goons being sent to the scene, those throwing of stones, for the first time members of the legal profession were tear gassed. And there was no even attempt by the members of the legal profession to break the peace. So for us to see such incidents happening, and now this is happening to the Medical Doctors Association, these are the same doctors who work in hand with the police force in various endeavors. And we are questioning what is the motive of this government. This is not the normal political mandamandos where there is theft or fighting or any scores of violence. This is a peaceful demonstration by a professional organization, and yet we are seeing police using unnecessary force. And we are saying that you must bring this police officer to book.
And what about, now that you've mentioned, people ignoring the law, the situation where, the head of the country would say some things and say, we are not going to do A, B, C, D. What can LSK do so that we restore, first of all, faith?
Oh,
then I quote,
pardon the pun.
Unintended.
in the whole LSK and how things are run in the country. Because once the head of the country says whatever he says and it's against the courts, things just go south.
That is why the Law Society came out quite strongly with that regard, and you saw us also going to the streets, protesting against affront to the judiciary, as well as what we did in Nakuru, because our message was it stems from the head of state. So if the head of state is saying that they will not obey court orders, then you see the counties are also picking and reading from the same script.
Yeah.
But something that we loved about the Finance Act, the issue after it went to court, was that you saw also FKE coming out quite strongly and issuing a statement that to all its employees that abide by the court orders. So if you decide to disregard the court orders while the employers would at any event be deducting those monies, refuse to deduct those monies, then how will you ensure that you get that money? And so that's the kind of trajectory that I love, that the various stakeholders are coming together and realizing the importance of obeying some of these court orders and working in concert with the Law Society, amongst other different stakeholders, that we hold ourselves accountable. That while one arm of government is saying that they will ignore, let the rest follow suit and abide by the court orders. So at the end of the day, they'll have to follow the court channels. I relay back to what William Mutunga, the Chief Justice Emeritus, said at an NCAJ meeting where most of the politicians were present, and he said this to the politicians, that, the rule of law is greater than each and every one of you. Today, you were in the previous government that rubbished a lot of the court orders, but look that the former head of state was running to the courts to save his own son. So if you think that the rule of law is something that you can play with, wait until you leave this office that you're sitting in today, then you will realize, like the former head of state, Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, that indeed the law is important to safeguard each and every one of you.
Let me ask you, would it be possible for one thing in your interest to fight for a refund of our illegally taken monies? I can send you the details.
Me too.
You want your monies back?
I want it back.
Yes.
So once the case is heard and determined, of course, why not? A lot of Kenyans will be asking those questions. And if you saw even the Auditor General, who had raised queries before she was being accosted about where is this money that has been collected. Since this money had been, there's no particular account that you can say it's been traced that the money has been kept. So yes, we can follow that up, but the question is, will you get that money? It's tongue in cheek.
See, they have all my details, PIN and everything. The same way they took it is how they send it back.
KRA to refund it.
There are a lot of bad apples in every business, in every organization.
Yeah.
But you hear stories, horror stories about unscrupulous lawyers. Can that ever be fixed, Faith? I mean, maybe it's just asking for too much, but a lot of people complain.
It's true. Quite a number complain about unscrupulous lawyers, but we have to separate. There are two kinds. There's the unqualified lawyers who purport to do law, or practice law, and then we have our lawyers who find themselves on the wrong side of the law. So we have a disciplinary committee in place that we actually hold them accountable, and some even have been disbarred from practicing. And part of the measures we're just trying to crack down as we started the last 2 years was just ensuring those who are suspended or struck off cannot practice law at all, and a bit of the surveillance we're doing, as well as trying to crack down and arrest any who are purporting to practice law and yet they are not lawyers or qualified to practice law. So my message of encouragement to the members of the public is do some bit of due diligence. When you give your trust to somebody, it has to be based on something. Yes, we get a lot of our work from referral, but we have a website that you can verify the details. You get the name of the advocate, plug into the LSK search engine, check if this is a qualified advocate, just to be sure, because at least the qualified ones, we can get a hold of them, we can hold them accountable, we can have them, if it's monies, have them refunded, or when there is the threat of actually getting disbarred because now you lose your opportunity to practice and work at all, then they'll be able to comply. But the non-qualified, it has to go through, it's a fraudulent case, the normal processes of law. And so do a bit of due diligence, and we hope that we'll be doing a bit more of public awareness on how do you get an advocate, how do you verify who's a qualified advocate, to just keep the public aware and also to know how to protect themselves from any unqualified persons. What we'll also try to do is revamp a disciplinary committee to just ensure that some of these matters that are being heard are expeditious, to also give the members of the public faith that LSK as well, who's holding our members accountable, who have, so to speak, engaged in unlawful practices.
So I guess that's a point, because does the website also have the charges for what a lawyer can charge for X amount? Because in that, when you say some people are scrupulous, someone will just have a chat with you and say, this one has some money, let me just tell them it costs X amount. But I think there is like a list of price, and then I think there's give or take X amount, depending on the law firm. Or how does it work?
Well, it's mostly privity of contract, but we have the advocate's remuneration order that just sets the basic limits that you can't charge below this amount. So if you ask based on the advocate's remuneration order, an advocate will be able to just calculate, because it's on different matters in land, court matters, attendances. So the regulation is quite clear on how to charge on different matters. But certain matters, it's mostly privity of contract, how you agree with and negotiate with your advocate on a certain matter.
Yeah. A few years ago, LSK had a really bad reputation. Eric Theory did a good job, you guys, in restoring it. Before that, it was disastrous with Nelson Harvey.
Are you speaking as a former lawyer? What did Nelson do?
He was in conflict with his own organization. It was disastrous. Anyway, will faith restore hope?
The kind of leadership style that we adopted in this previous council was more of collaborative, just listening to one another, the different interests, putting them together, and how can we work together as a team. So I think the beauty that my predecessor had more was he allowed people to ventilate. We'd have quite long meetings, but allowing everyone to ventilate their concerns and their issues before agreeing, on a way forward together as a team. And so that's the kind of style. I believe that even the new council members that are joining understand the mood and the mood of our members, because a lot of us, this overwhelming support that we've gotten from the membership is stemming on what also the kind of character, how you work with others, your track record, how you treat other advocates. And so the mood of the society is they do not want somebody who will come and, start fighting internally and sharing information outside. As a society from that previous council led by Harvey, the lesson that we have learned is we want a society that works, a society that listens to each other, and a society does not air our dirty linen to the members of the public. We've been able to restore that, and I hope that in these 2 years that we can maintain that momentum and ensure that irrespective of the different interests that we have, the greatest interest is those of the members of the Law Society of Kenya and our people of Kenya, that we shelve our personal, any selfish interest and focus on what is our common goal as a team.
Absolutely. They say that going through the LSK, becoming president of the LSK, is a stepping stone to other things. Is Faith thinking about that beyond LSK?
I find that funny because I've not even been sworn into office, and people are already getting flags out for you, and have a protracted plan for you.
They're speculating.
Like sasa after Baba, sinaweza kuwa ni wewe Faith. Unaonaje?
And I'm telling them, let me work first, because that will determine any other story thereafter. So I'm not harboring any plans right now.
Yeah,
for
but you've
anything.
thought of it, Faith. Come on.
So,
You've toured the country. You've been on the ground. Ground
And you've tasted the power LSK. Now imagine the Republic of Kenya.
I'd say that my focus now is serving
You're speaking like a real
the profession
So
and the people of Kenya. So I don't know about the plans for next. I have a PhD also to finish. I got a reprieve from my supervisor to allow me to vie for the elections, and now he'll be looking at me that the elections are over.
So Faith, please,
Dr. Faith.
Dr. Faith, please take us back to your legal career. Tell us all you have done before you go to this position. Schools attended. Because I feel like we left out pertinent information.
Oh gosh.
Faith, PhD in what?
PhD in competition and mobile money.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, there's the law for it, or it's just called PhD in?
No. It's PhD in law, but my area of specialization has been competition law. So I was looking at my studies on competition in the mobile money sector. Yeah.
We should go back to school, huh?
Sasa mimi nikianza after
Mobile money.
school and then now.
So Faith went to
Yes.
LLB at Catholic University of Eastern Africa, and then of course I joined Kenya School of Law like all my other colleagues.
Yes.
I later on went for my master's at the University of Kent, where I specialized in international commercial law and European Union law, hence the competition law and telecoms area. That is my area of expertise that I've built over time. Then I'm a certified public secretary. I'm a arbitrator as well at the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators in Kenya. I'm a mediator as well.
You're what?
A mediator.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what does an arbitrator do?
Arbitration is, Kenya has a dispute on the Kenya Railways. I think you've heard about RVR.
Yes, with Uganda.
And so it's an arbitration case that is going to be heard in London. So those are what arbitrators do. It's just like a litigator, but arbitration is more of a private process. And so we'll be having our former Attorney General and one of my mentors, Professor Albert Muma, who will be representing Kenya in that matter. So yes, those are kind of the arbitrations.
And the UK has sued Kenya and Uganda.
It's RVR that has sued Kenya and Uganda, but the seat of arbitration is in London. Yeah.
And for 300 billion shillings.
Can you imagine now the legal fees you get from that?
I think we're going to go do law, yes. Huh? I'll start with certificate next week and see how far up we can do this in the next
1% legal fees.
You can rest for the rest of the year, right? While everyone is chasing paper in court, you're chill, you know. Yeah.
All right, listen, the elephant in the room, but we haven't addressed yet, and I think we should. The fact that the Supreme Court came down heavy on the Grand Muller, Ahmednasir Abdullahi, saying that he, his advocate, his law firm, his associates, they will not listen to any of their cases. Was that fair?
I feel the court was overstretching itself. I think if they found that Ahmednasir as an individual was went beyond in terms of the scathing remarks that he made against them, the simple thing was that they would give him an opportunity to be heard, and holding him in contempt if they found fit, because he would not be the first one to be held in contempt if they felt that he was actually in contempt of court. However, the decision to go to that extent, not only barring him, because you're disenfranchising not only, the members of the public who have trust in Ahmednasir's skills in court, and also have, confidence in his law firm, because that law firm also has different partners as well as associates who are in that law firm. And so to make such a scathing decision, I think it was not only unfair, but it failed the basic principles of natural justice and right to a fair hearing. Because these courts, as much as they feel that Ahmednasir has been making scathing remarks, I would say that where is the standard in terms of how do you criticize this court? Because it's not, this is the same court that made certain comments at when we had the presidential petition that people found were, a bit too much in terms of the language, was a bit strong. The hot hair and wild goose chase. But no one could really say anything other than complain about it in the social media. The only difference is Ahmednasir has a greater following on social media than most would do, and he's quite consistent in his attacks. And this is the highest court of the land. It's a public office. And so enjoying the same, they ought to be, open to criticism as a court.
So if you were to give the Grand Muller some advice as president of the LSK, what would you tell him?
The senior counsel is that I think certain disputes we can sit together and mediate the process and mediate the concerns, because he has a going concern. He has a business that is running, and he litigates to the highest court of the land, and as well as his law firm and his practice. And so for the future of also our legal practice, I think that certain disputes, let us find different ways of resolving. So it's important to criticize, I agree, but let's also find amicable ways of resolving disputes rather than having it just fully protracted without agreeing on a full way forward.
By the way, how does one become senior counsel? I've always wanted to find out.
So the current process, before you are nominated or once you are president of the Law Society, naturally you became a senior counsel.
Oh, so you're headed for senior counsel?
No. That process was changed by statute now. So you have to apply, and there's a committee comprising of judges, and the LSK elects 2 members to sit on that committee as well, that vet the applications, look at how you've been able to, your outstanding contribution to the legal profession, and then you get proposed or nominated for the senior counsel bar. So it's now a rigorous process with regards to how do you join. What members would want to see is a more transparent process, aligning once they're shortlisted, what kind of qualifications did you set out, and also a criteria to ensure that not only just practicing advocates make it to the senior counsel list, but also more of those who are in academia who have made a great contribution to growth of the legal profession, those who are in-house in terms of in-house counsel, those who are conveyancers and have been able to develop the law in their different capacities of practice. Then they should also be given that opportunity to raise up to the senior counsel bar.
Interesting. Well, Faith Odhiambo, LSK President-elect, we wish you all the very best of luck.
Thank you.
And let's keep talking, if you want to,
anytime you want to come to Hot 96.
Yes. Tuambie too.
Yes.
We'll hook it up.
Well, Nicholas is my brother, so that's cool.
It's actually International Women's Week.
Yes.
What can you say, to fellow women,
lawyers, and women in general?
I want to celebrate particularly all the women in law, and say that during this week, take out time to identify a woman or two that has helped you build the journey to who you are today, and note them, share them on Facebook. Let us celebrate the people who have, not only you who is outstanding in whichever area of practice that you are in, but also celebrate those who have guided you and have mentored you to that particular process. We're hopefully going to have something in store for Women's Week this week. And so keep tuned.
All right.
Stay tuned.